The third set of college football playoff rankings will be released on Tuesday. Here's a look at Brad Crawford's bracket prediction. Got North Texas as the Group of 5 representative playing Texas Tech in the first round. Oklahoma moving up, taking on Oregon. Georgia Tech, the ACC projected champion, facing Alabama, who drops a couple of spots after their loss to Oklahoma, according to Brad Crawford. Notre Dame and Ole Miss in the 10-7 game, and you see Georgia there into the top 4. They would receive a first-round bye. Georgia taking down Texas on this night. Georgia has won 6 in a row since losing to Alabama. All right, back here with Beanie Wells, Adam Breneman, and welcome in the aforementioned Brad Crawford. Brad, we're going to jump right in here. You have 2-loss Alabama only falling 2 spots to 6 in front of a 1-loss Ole Miss team, and you have Oklahoma behind Alabama at 9th. What's the thought process here?
Yeah, I think Oklahoma right now, really big to move up several spots. We're 11 last week. I think it's a bad day for Texas. I don't think Bama falls down all that much, Akim. However, if they lose to Auburn in 2 weeks and go 9-3, not only is Bama will miss a trip to Atlanta, SEC championship game, but Bama will also be out of this 12-team bracket. So it was a playoff elimination game for the Sooners today. They got it done at Bryant-Denny. And while Bama will not fall all that far Tuesday night, the falling may be just beginning for the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing to see what happens Tuesday night is the Alabama versus Oklahoma. After the head-to-head win Oklahoma just got, you got both teams with 2 losses. You got both teams with 4 top 25 wins. Now Oklahoma wins the head-to-head battle. A lot of people, and me included, think Oklahoma should be ranked ahead of Alabama in the next ranking. And then you have what happens with Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a 2-loss team that just beat a top 25 Pitt team by multiple scores and has their 2 losses early in the season to Miami and Texas Tech and Texas A&M. So, there's a lot of conversations that are going to be happening on Tuesday. What you do with an Alabama team who has a bunch of great wins, but now the 2 losses.
Yeah, Brad, I want to ask a question about Texas A&M. I think for the last couple of weeks, the committee and people had the question if Texas A&M should be ranked above Indiana at that number 2 spot. Now, do you see a situation, in your opinion, I know you still got them at 3, but do you see a situation to where the committee starts to look at Texas A&M a little bit differently considering how they played today? Do you think this game caused more questions than answers about if Texas A&M is a legitimate team?
I think it's a bit more questions, Beanie. Last week I thought the big narrative coming into that was, are the Aggies going to be placed ahead of the Hoosiers? And I thought Indiana would stay in that 2 spot. I think the committee has kind of spoken these last few weeks. They believe the Buckeyes and the Hoosiers are the 2 best teams in college football. The others are kind of in that tier 2. I think we're going to stay that way Tuesday night. Texas A&M falling behind by 4 touchdowns at home to a bad South Carolina team. That's not a good look. And I know A&M ran off 28 unanswered points in the second half. Marcel Reed settled down, played really well there. Texas A&M is still a team that I think could lose 2 weeks from now against Texas.
Okay, so I'm going to keep you right there then.
Yeah.
If you're saying Texas wins that game, what are you going to do with Texas as a 3-loss team?
You know what, Akim? I don't think we're going to see a 3-loss team in the college football playoff this season. There's going to be too many 10-win at-larges. And this Saturday could not have gone worse for Texas. Not only do you not play competitively at Georgia, but you also see Oklahoma win at Alabama. You see Notre Dame roll. Those are some teams around Texas in that at-large range that Texas needed to have lose. So now Texas has to go on the road. 2 weeks from now, they get A&M at home. If they win that game, obviously, they're going to get a crack at being that last team in. But I don't think we're going to see a 3-loss at-large team this season.
I think the committee has made 2 things pretty clear. If you have a 0 in your column, you will be ranked ahead of any team with 1 loss and certainly with 2 losses. Doesn't matter how many ranked wins you have. You have a 0 in your loss column, you will be ranked ahead of a 1-loss team. And they're not ready to put a 3-loss team into the playoff. It's just not going to happen. There's too many 2-loss teams that will say they have the deserve. They'll look at record strength. They'll look at the measurements. They'll look at those things. They'll look at what they did against ranked opponents, right? But if you have 3 losses on your resume, I don't think there's room for you at the party yet. Maybe when we make the field bigger, when we have expansion, but not in a 12-team playoff.
But even when we look at Texas's schedule and the teams that they did indeed lose to, but the teams that they beat that doesn't put their resume up there with some of the other teams that are going to be in this field if they do indeed lose 3, but go out and knock off the number 3 team in the country in Texas A&M?
Yeah, I think a big piece of this is how Texas just lost to Georgia. 35-10 was the final score. Wasn't even a competitive game in the second half. If that would have been a tight ball game, I think we'd be sitting here with a little bit of a different tone about if Texas beats Texas A&M, 3-loss team with some big wins and some losses to solid teams, that they'd have a chance. But I agree with what Brad said. I don't think there's a path here for Texas to make the playoff with 3 losses.
Texas needed Florida to beat Ole Miss tonight. That's what really they needed, and that didn't happen because you look at that loss, that's a really bad loss. That's a 3-win Florida team, right? To me, it's like I think they're out. I think people will say, well, they're not eliminated. My opinion, this is me speaking, I think Texas is out. They're done. So I want to stay right in the ACC, or the SEC rather, because Vanderbilt was off this week. But if they win out, that would give them wins against Kentucky and a ranked Tennessee team. So, Brad, what does the committee do with a 10-2 Vandy team?
Well, you look at Vanderbilt's game control, and it's not one of the best in the SEC. I know Vanderbilt lost by 3 at Texas, but if the committee did watch that game for 3.5 quarters, Texas was up, 4 touchdowns in that game. It really wasn't all that competitive. Vandy came back late. I don't think Vanderbilt, even at 10-2, is going to make this bracket. They're going to be one of 4 or 5 10-win SEC teams. And guys, you just can't fill half the bracket with the SEC. I think we're going to see 5 SEC teams get in, 3 from the Big Ten. The good news for Vanderbilt, best case scenario, would probably be Oregon losing to USC or Washington in that road game. Then you sort of put resumes together. Vanderbilt's a better looking team than Oregon, despite Oregon having that brand name.
Who's another team, Adam, you think that we need to watch for that could sneak in here into the playoff field?
Yeah, I mean, Brad just alluded to it. I think USC is a team to watch. USC has a huge game against Oregon next week, and if USC can win that game, have 2 losses, they will be in a really good spot to make the college football playoff. If you're a Big Ten fan, I mean, you want USC to beat Oregon because I think USC and Oregon are then in the playoffs. Both teams in the Big Ten gets 4 teams in. But USC, with how they're playing on offense, how Jada Mayava is playing, how explosive they are, and that win against Iowa, who's beaten a bunch of great teams this year, just played Oregon competitively, I think USC's got a real chance.
A team that I'm looking at that potentially has an opportunity to get back in this thing and, could certainly happen because they could face a team in the Big 12 championship is BYU.
Yep.
If they were to go out and beat Texas Tech in a rematch in the Big 12 championship, we could be watching this team jump up back in this discussion, and not just back in the discussion, but back in there very high because Texas Tech right now is ranked number 5.
Yeah, you'd have a bid thief. That's what we'd have, Brad. We would have a NCAA college basketball. We'd have a bid thief.
I was going to say BYU and USC, fellas, actually were my first 2 teams out tonight. So those guys are right on the bubble. And Akim, you alluded to it. I think Texas is out as well. Even if the Longhorns go 9-3, there are going to be too many teams with better records and comparable, maybe not better resumes, but comparable resumes who haven't lost as many games as the Longhorns down the stretch.
Brad Crawford, Adam Breneman, Beanie Wells here with us on CBS Sports HQ. And here's a look back at Brad's projected bracket. You can argue with it. You can send him messages on social media and tell him what he got right and what he got wrong. Because we like healthy conversation. That's what we do here, okay? As you take a look at his bracket, again, a 3rd set of college football playoff rankings will be released on Tuesday, and we will have wall-to-wall coverage right here on CBS Sports HQ.